Hi class, Professor Barry Brennan. I'm back. We will continue our discussion about virtual communication. I'm pretty sure that this will be part 3 will be the last part of this lecture. So let's get to it right now. We left off talking about drawbacks, right? We left out I think we're talking about drawbacks in virtual communication. Now we're going to look at the difference between how men and women use computer mediated communication. So how does gender influence, right, how we communicate through computer mediated communication? What does that look like? So women are more likely to speak from their own feelings, from their own how they feel, what they think. They're more used to use I statements. When we say a warm we it's inclusive. When we say we, they're trying to be, the intention is to be inclusive. Usually really young women are more passive in terms of their communication, though responsive. So someone has to start the communication for them to actually respond. And then with men, generally speaking, men are more likely to use large words. They'll talk in generalities. They'll probably use swear words or cuss words or slang. The distant we is men, by the time men are men, boys are men, they've been taught, especially in this culture, to hide their feelings and to put their feelings, on the back burner or in the back, like in the back of them, on their back rather than right in their front. Like women are more likely to show their feelings. And so it makes sense that men might approach things with kind of distant we, which means kind of like a disconnected, not necessarily not inclusive, but just, and not necessarily indifferent either, but just more like in this generality, in this kind of disconnected, but a little dissociated with it. And men generally are the more, when they're young on social media, it's more like they're more assertive. There's a lot of flirting going on. They initiate conversation. They initiate interaction. Um, this is part of what happens in young people and how their girls just kind of wait and boys do the interacting. Okay. All right. Age and social media. This is one of the interesting things. I find it interesting because at my age, I'm in Gen X, and we are the generation that's lived both a good part of our up until young adulthood without any kind of internet and social media, and we didn't learn about social media or internet until like when we were into our later adulthood, not later, but like later young adulthood. So into our probably 30s. And so that, those of you all that are younger than that, and we say the digital native, you grew up, this is what was normal for you. But for me and my generation, we know what it was like before that. Probably I'm the same age as your parents. And what it was like before that and what it's like that now. So we can see like both ends of it. So it's interesting depending on where you're born when it comes to social media or even computer mediated communication, our perspective on it, right? Our perspective on the need for it, the not need for it. Why it was hard for me when I had a stepdaughter at home and she was in a relationship with a young man, and the way they communicated initially was only by text. And I didn't understand that because for me, I grew up, I had my own phone in my bedroom. So I could be on that phone all day long if I wanted to. And just like a typical girl, communication on the phone, but we were talking on the phone. There wasn't texting them. We would talk on the phone. So it's interesting how to see that and to recognize that it's so generational. And at some point, as this generation, my generation, dies off, your generation is going to get older, and this will be what is normal. Like, who will remember what it was like before this? It will be interesting. It'll be like, they'll call it like the dinosaur age. Okay. Generational experience with communication divide can create a divide and misunderstanding. So it can, I think probably 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago, I think there was a greater divide. I think that more people of the older generation after me, the baby boomer generation, some of them are very much hip to using social media and using the internet. Like they know what they're doing. Really much older generation, like my parents, my mom still had a flip phone before she died, and she was comfortable with that. So in fact, I remember saying to her, let's get rid of the flip phone and get something else. But she really didn't want anything fancy, and she really didn't want a text. She'd get texts and she didn't know what to do with them. So it is generational. It can create a divide, but your job as young people that are used to this is to be patient and to help people learn how to do this and be patient and be willing to meet people halfway, right? Be willing to say, okay, grandma or great grandma, I will just pick up the phone and call you. Don't force them to do something that's not natural for them. Okay, find common ground. There we are. Find common ground. Find a way that you can communicate that it'll serve both of you, but asking someone in a generation that's never had this and it's completely foreign to them is asking a lot for them to change. It doesn't mean old people don't change, it doesn't mean anything like that. But this is like, for people who haven't grown up with this is like visiting a foreign country with a foreign language, and you expect to know the language right when you walk into the foreign country. And that, for most people, almost everyone, is impossible. Okay, if you don't have any background, if you've never heard it before, it is like that. Foreign country, foreign language. So you know the language, you know the foreign country, and you also know how to go to their country and know how to be in their country. So just consider that the next time you want to argue with anyone about or feel like they're not with the program or with it, consider what you have going for you and how you can actually be the bridge. Okay. Do's and don'ts. When you're away, when you're with your partner, or even with your friend, put your dang phone away. Like, let it go, right? You have the ability to be face to face, and now more than ever, you're probably going to appreciate more than you ever did in your whole life when you're able to be face to face and hang out with your friends again. Put that stupid phone away. Put your smartphone away. Be with your friend, right? Be considerate of the tone of your text or email or post. Think about what you're saying. Your words have power. There's no way for them to discern the nuances. There's no nuances in it. The emojis are helpful, but not completely. So consider that. Consider where and when you can use your cell phone and when it's going to disturb others. It's annoying to have people on their cell phones or watching videos like in a doctor's office. That's just plain rude. Think about that. Think about in places where you're in a public space and you're watching a video and it's loud. Rude. Totally rude. Because they're in that space and you're making them choose to do something that they don't necessarily want to do. So be considerate. Take your phone calls outside the same way you would take your phone calls if you didn't have a cell phone. Don't post information you don't want public. Right? If you don't want people to know things, don't post it. You have a choice. All these things are choices. That's what the internet gives you. You do have choices. This is key, folks. Don't believe everything you see online. Just because you saw it on Facebook doesn't mean it's true. I'll give you a perfect example. There was a post going around about, I'm a wolf advocate, right? So I have some expertise in wolves. But there was a post going around of this picture of these wolves going down a hill in a line. And there were someone circled it and wrote why this was happening this way. And the oldest was in the back because they couldn't, or they were in the middle or something. And they were protected by the pack. And there's all this. Anyway, the point is all that was BS. It wasn't even true. And someone had just kind of made that up. And people had sent that to me. And I was like, this isn't true. So there are things, that's just one example. There's plenty of examples, right? Of not, you want to call it fake news, whatever you want to call it, untruths out there, do your fact checking. Don't believe everything you see. Don't allow the internet or social media to steal your time. It can. It's a time stealer. It's a time, I always called a time suck. It really is. And it can take away your time. And you know what? You only have so many years left on the planet being who you are. And, so use your time wisely. Okay. And that's going to end it. We're on the discussion board. We're going to be talking about dating apps. And there's a whole thing on the discussion board about that. And honestly, social media is not going away. Computer mediated communication is not going away. It is part of how we deal with things now. And how we'll use it, I think, is going to determine a lot of how we treat others in our own humanity, to not forget our humanity, and to not forget when you're face to face with someone, maybe that's a rule that everyone should use is, before you post something, would you say would you say the same thing to their face? Really, would you do that? And if you would, then post. But if you wouldn't, you might want to reconsider. So that's it. Have a great week, and I'll see you later. Okay, bye.